Okay, with this movie, there's been an exploration of Hagploitation. Hagploitation, which is the template of a horror movie where there was a glamorous woman at the time, glamorous, and all of a sudden she turned grotesque, ugly for some reason, trauma, and she starts terrorizing everybody. And a lot of people critiquing this, including on Fangora, putting this into the Hag exploitation genre. I don't know if that's correct or not. We'll kind of talk with Kyle and see if he kind of agrees.
Yeah, I've heard of the old biddy,
Psycho Biddy,
or
the old
something.
Biddy kid. Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, we're definitely going to talk about Ty West's other 22 film. We already talked about Pearl. Now we're talking, I guess, with the follow-up, if you will. Ty West X. Join us.
Yes, join.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Hey, we do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals. First, tell us what movies we should critique next. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out the webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about another great horror movie from 2022. It's turning out a great year for horror movies. We're talking about X.
It's 1979, and a team of enterprising filmmakers looking to make an adult film seek to rent out a Texas farmhouse. The elderly couple who own the farmhouse are unusual enough, but when night falls, this adult film is going to become an effed up horror movie.
Okay, so this is Ty West. He previously we did another movie. What was it? In the Valley
of Violence.
I think he learned his mistakes through that process and got a little bit better.
Don't you slap that movie in.
Yeah. This stars Mia Goth. She's also in Pearl, but you recognize her from other stuff as well.
Yeah, Cure for Wellness, Nymphomaniac Part 2, I believe.
She was,
and she's awesome in the Suspiria remake.
Right, yeah, she's kind of like a supporting role with Dakota. Yes. Brittany Snow, now you horror fans will know that she's the lead from the Prom Night remake.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, her hair's a little bit less blonde than it's in this movie.
Yeah.
And she was a little less sympathetic that you appreciate compared to this movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I keep seeing her in Hairspray and Pitch Perfect, so, like, she's exactly the same person.
And we have another one that's God, I don't know if you should call her a rising star anymore. She probably is just a star. It's Jenna Ortega from Scream.
And she was in Studio 666 this year as well. So she's got 3 horror movies under her belt this year, and I think 2 of them are great. 666 is okay.
I don't know. Would you call her a rising star? Or just...
At this point, she's more of a bomb that got dropped on 2022 horror. Because it's
Right.
not just a rising. Rising
Right.
means like you're in one this year, and then you're in one next year. But she's just like, hey, you know what? From January on to December, I'm here. I'm in for horror. Get used to it. You know what? I think she's fantastic in all 3 of the movies that she's in.
In Scream, she kind of has a transition. Her character goes through it. But then this one, it's like she's like a little mouse that all of a sudden blossoms into a big gigantic rat, you know?
Yeah.
So she can do transitions. Martin Henderson's in this. I recognize him from Kick 99, but everybody, if you're a softie, recognize he's been on Grey's Anatomy since it began. I think he's still on that show. Do you watch Grey's?
No, I saw him in The Ring 2002 when he goes like this at the end.
Oh,
he's the not the boyfriend really, but like the guy of Naomi Watts.
Is that the Naomi Watts one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's in that, and I
Yeah.
also think he's completely unhinged in a great action movie called Smokin' Aces.
Oh, is
I
that
really love Smokin'
Is that
Aces.
the Scott movie?
No.
Smoking It.
Smokin' Aces is all the guys descending on the hotel trying to kill one person. Oh,
Yeah,
it's so good.
is that Tony Scott?
No. It feels like Tony Scott.
It feels
though.
like a Tony Scott movie, right? And he does. We'll get to that to review, but I think Ty West fits perfect for not people kind of under the radar that are willing to kind of get their opportunities to really kind of shine. Brittany's been doing movies since for 20 years, and people don't really recognize her. Even though we talk about Prom Night, Prom Night.
So
he's able to pluck people out of the ether and just like.
Yeah, because Martin Henderson, I mean, I've seen him in a number of things. I've never seen him like this before. Brittany Snow, same way. The fact that he's got Kid Cudi in the film, who's hasn't really proven himself as an actor yet. I mean, sure, he was in Don't Look Up. He was in a couple other things, but has never really proven himself as a main co-lead of a film with the others, because it really is a whole group of people in this movie.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see Kid Cudi in this film, and also then producing Pearl and like really getting invested in that kind of stuff.
And the last person I have to mention, because I don't, we mentioned in the previous episode, Owen Campbell's in it. If you recognize him, he's in Super Dark Times. I don't. We're going to talk about Super Dark Times eventually. I
think
So you get all the nexus together. Ty West wants to do. Save money, you do 2 movies at the same time.
Yeah.
You didn't really know it at the time. It's nice,
he was not prepping for 2, but
not prepping for 2, but this is a nice little drop of finding you one location. He did it for in the Valley of Violence. It sets up, where you want to do. But there are some outside the farm. There's some great, like the beginning of the movie where the stripper club, whatever.
Yeah.
There's some great tracking shots to this.
Well, I love that, Pearl has that element of the camera is not entirely stationary, but it is more of like it moves exactly how a camera could have moved in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s. It's a little bit more slower, a little bit more paced. In the 70s, we had a little bit more movement we could get in with that camera. We had a little bit more capabilities, and you see that on Play with X here, is that he's kind of embracing some of the shot qualities from the time period, embracing some of the soundtrack from the time period without being, like, too forced in.
No, Paul Thomas Anderson would just pump 70s.
Yeah, and like we get Don't Fear the Reaper. Like we get like a couple of like the staples, but we also just get some songs that fit the tone of the movie as opposed to fit the tone of the time period.
Yes, yeah. So he has to have like some kind of contract with, was it Blumhouse? Is this a Blumhouse?
This is A24, I believe.
Oh, yeah. A24. Gosh.
Yeah, that's why I was so impressed with the film. Is A24 is still a very small outfit, so the fact that they gave money to make this movie, and then he was like, "Hey, I got another one," and he was like, "Yeah, have a little bit more money." Is pretty crazy. So
yeah, he must have some kind of. They see something in him to like hold on to him, to trust him to do this 2 movies at the same time.
Yeah,
and shoot
and
at
then
one location.
No.
But it's interesting how they super glossed it for Pearl, and then for this, they just
dingy,
right, dingy. So a lot of people will critique this. You see a lot of the DNA of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this. You see definitely a lot of DNA of Paul Thomas Anderson with Boogie Nights. I think a lot of
Psycho with the car in the water.
Psycho in the car in the water. I think the beginning of the movie, we would know in the beginning of the movie with Mia Goth looking at herself in the mirror. Paul Thomas would definitely zoom.
Yeah,
yeah. But Ty's like different. We'll just set it stationary. We'll let the actors come together, calm everything down. And that's nice beginning because it does have a slow. I would say if this movie was a match, it would start really slow and then whoom. It's a slow burn to almost to a fast burn.
Well, the thing I find very captivating about the structure of the film is that it's very similar from Dusk Till Dawn. It's 2 halves of a movie. And the 2 halves are extremely different in how they play things out. I mean, this movie even has a line halfway through where the girl wants to be in the porno film, and then they're like, "Well, you can't just change the story halfway through," and that's exactly what they do a couple minutes later.
And don't you love those self-revelations in movies?
A lot of this movie has that element in it where people are talking about how they look down on us because we're adult film stars, and what I see as they're doing is they're saying it about adult film and about horror. They look down on us because of the films that we make, because there is intrinsically that relationship between adult films and horror films. They were both seen on like the Nexus outer rings, especially in the 70s, where you had to have these special movie theaters to watch adult films, and you had to have your special grindhouse theaters to watch your horror films.
And we talked about it previously, where the nature, the start of cinema was these kind of movies, or in pornography.
It was the limits of what you could really get to, which is usually violence or sex.
Yes. And it gets to Pearl. She sees that initially too. We talked about it in the movie. Well, eventually, when we talk about this movie, you have to talk Pearl too.
Oh yeah, I'm very much excited to have us talk about Maxine next year and really compare all 3 of the films, because now it has a follow-up coming on.
Maxine going 80s. Yeah. Right. Whoa. Yeah, she's gonna have a knife definitely. So I think Ty West has figured out his style, what he wants to do. I'm very interested after these first 2 movies, what he's gonna maintain. I think he's got a formula that he fits for him. Yeah. As well as finding the people to works with him.
Yeah. He has staples of his career that I think I've noticed now over the period of time is the stuff where he seems most invested. He likes single settings. You mentioned it earlier within the Valley of Violence, but it's also true of The Innkeepers. It's also true of House of the Devil, The Sacrament. A lot of his films do have that inner sanctum of we try and shoot a film in one location and let the characters move around, kind of like a play. But he also is fully aware of the cinema of the time period and how he can relate it to his film, because he doesn't have a lot of movies that are very specifically time period set. No. But he tends to give each film a look that is cognizant of a specific time period.
Right. It's not forced looking like 70s. It's not that forced, but it's actually it looks like it. It definitely looks like it, but it's not like heavy-handed. But the editing of the wiping screens or the tracking scenes, or they had those in Star Wars of the wipes or whatever that we use a lot in the 70s, as well as a little bit of the audios look crackling as well.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell if the theater I saw it in originally had done it on purpose, but there was kind of some of that like crackle sparkle throughout this whole theater I saw it in.
I miss 70s sound films, the sound of the movies in the 70s. It's just there's something to it. I just watched Slither, and that just has that overbearing sound of films from the 70s.
Yeah,
and
crackling bacon.
Ty West's got it. Yeah, so I think this works because you have a mixture of something, X-rated movies as well as horror.
Yep.
I don't know why anybody hasn't thought about this at the time.
Yeah, it's always, there have always been elements of it throughout cinema, but I've never seen a film so heavily focused on the relationship between the two.
Yeah.
And it felt to me like a movie I wasn't supposed to be watching. I'm like 32 years old. There's no reason I can't, but it felt like to me like a movie that I wasn't supposed to see. So much so that when the trailer would play in front of other movies, you'd see people kind of give it this look of like, oh, gross. Because it's just, you're talking dirty movies. When I went to see this in the theater on opening day, I was in an empty theater. I was in the second row in the very center watching this movie. And that made it all the more strange when people would, a guy would wander in to see if the movie was done to clean and then leave. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Right, that's kind of the kind of movie. It's like, it's not going to bust theaters, but you still want to want it. But it's like, do I really want to be that person? Everybody's like, oh, you went to see that movie.
But this movie percolated. I told people to go see it after I saw it, and more people went out to the cinema, and more people did. And that's been a lot of the winning of horror this year. It's not been so much that your movie has a big pop, but that is a great word of mouth. And that's what this one has.
So it has a lot of elements of what we call Hague exploitation, the psycho biddy that Peter Shelley and Tomasz Fizik talked about in Fangoria. The elements of the transition lady who once was glamorous, who had it all and became mentally unstable and started terrorizing people. That's kind of a template. I don't really think overall that is the movie. I think that's a little bit of the movie. I think that what Ty West is trying to talk about is these two different elements are the same things. Teenagers go see horror movies as... Yeah, that's fun. I mean, even the most conservative parent, like, we're going to go see this scary movie when they're 16. Yeah, go do it.
Yeah.
But if it's a naughty movie, like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Because we know horror is always a substitute, which is backwards for us, to go see naughty movies.
Yeah.
It's always been the kind of the substitute. And I think he's trying to show the balance of, well, the kind of the same cloth almost, the same DNA.
There's a similar phrase that was in one of the South Park movies when one of the persons had said, horrific, deplorable violence is okay as long as people don't say any dirty words. And I feel like for my youth, I remember that I would watch all the scary movies with my parents. I got along with them very well. We watched scary movies together.
Say the word, yeah.
But when a person would come on that screen that was nude, my mom would go block the TV and you can't see it. You can't have none of this. And it was always that thing where I just kind of giggled because it was like, I can see behind the TV. I know exactly what's there. It doesn't bother me. I'm here to watch the scary movie. I'm interested in the horror part, Right. But it's just so funny how we as a society, especially in America, are so anti, one horror bad element, but we're totally okay with the other. Yeah.
Oh, slashing guts and everything. But did you say the F word? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a boobie. You gotta pause.
Oh, yeah. See that? We saw a boob. What? Yeah. So up next is our review of X. I don't know. This is top 5 kind of horror movie for me.
This was, we
haven't critiqued all the horror movies of 2022, but right
2022, oh my God, this has been a whirlwind year. I don't think I've ever had a year where I have 4 horror films in my top 10. Maybe the only other year being 2016, but then I can't think of a year.
Well, you like it enough to buy it.
Oh yeah.
He bought it.
I went to the store when it came out, and I told my wife we're buying this and watching it, and she put it off for a little while, but I eventually won her over.
Yeah.
X is great because, again, I really like the appreciation for intermingling of the fringe society. The offshoots, the people who make the adult films, the people who make the horror films, and what they're, how they're seen by society, but they're really just people. And they're really just people living their lives.
I just see the craftsmanship of filmmaking. There's a long tracking shots like Tobe Hooper would do for Texas Chainsaw.
Yep.
But there's a long tracking shot of Sterling, going through the woods, and it's still, the aesthetic works. You have it going the camera in the house. It looks dark, looking out, which is almost like you're peering in, but you are the person in, and you're watching somebody creeping in, and all the emotions of don't do that. And they're still doing that. I love that when I watch a horror movie when they go, you're leaving. See what happens when you leave? Oh, that's going to... So... Yeah,
there's those classic horror from the 70s elements here, and we're going to get into spoilers here, so just bear with me here. Yeah. But I like that from the early half of the film, you're getting all the setup for all the characters' deaths. You have Bobby Lynn leaving the strip club.
We know the order.
Oh yeah, you got Bobby Lynn leaving the strip club, and there's an alligator biting out a woman's pants out on the wall of that. You've got Martin Henderson talking about, man, people's eyes are going to pop out of their skull when they see this. Yeah. You got Scott Mescudi who says, I've had a bunch of farmers aiming their guns on me in Nam. And how does he get put out? Like, every character seems to have their death scene foreshadowed, and it's in such a small way that you don't notice.
It's very subtle. I love the subtlety of that, even though it's a very loud film. But we talked about when you're writing about horror, you got to close in your environment, and there's no escape. Almost like you feel like you can leave at any time. But in reality, in the film, no, you can't.
No,
you're done. You're
well,
done.
Especially usually you're contingent upon the guy with the keys, and they seem to do everything that they can to piss off RJ throughout the first half of this film. And from the moment he's like, I'm gonna leave, I'm like, this is gonna be a problem for everybody now.
I don't think I like you. Yeah, I love that line. I don't think I like you. But right, even with the self-realization, the realization that's why the boyfriend left with the van is because he's like, nobody here is a saint.
Yeah,
even your girlfriend. And it's like, no. But I love that. I got a chuckle out of it. He has to melt down in the shower. Usually it's the girl.
Yeah.
Usually it's the girl in the horror movie, but he does. And I was like, yes.
Well, it's kind of that opposite too. I think he's got a hot shower going instead of a cold one because he's trying to work up the nerve to leave. He's not trying to come down off of it.
Right. How many horror movies we've seen like a woman has to have a meltdown in the shower? Let's give the dude a chance.
And I feel like that's Wes channeling hypocrisy. Yeah. Because he has RJ who's talking about making a dirty movie. You can make a good dirty movie. It's possible. But the moment that the people around him kind of pull away from that, he's like, well, no, that's not for you. That's what whores do. And he specifically calls out, he's like, that's what you're doing too, man.
That's what you're doing.
But I think that brings into the whole message of the film is that relationship between Maxine and Pearl, both played by Mia Goth.
Yes.
And having it all break down to the idea that life is short. Get the living in while you can, before it gets taken away from you.
That's another element that's explored in here, as well as, part of the Hague exploitation that's cited in their criticism is the Hague starts terrorizing when she sees the indulgence of what she wished she could do, and wish she could become, and they get the opportunity, and it pisses her off.
Yeah, well, especially now having seen Pearl, that aggrandizes that even more so in our older character because she's just wanted her whole life to not be on this damn farm, to break away from this. And now she sees people that come to the farm and they get to do all the things. They're making farmers' daughters. She was a farmer's daughter and she didn't get to do that. I like that the expansion and the relationship between the two. They both films have the same opening shot coming out of the barn.
Yes.
Both films have the hair piece that's right there. The gator is the same gator. Gators can live to be triple digits. So, it's the same gator in this whole life. I like that relationship of these elements where they're, introduced in that way.
It's covered. It's very clever because it's almost like it's another element of you want to watch it again. It has rewatchability times 1,000.
Oh, yeah. I love the relationship between the two because they're also two very different movies. So you don't feel like you're watching Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2. You're watching two drastically different horror movies. It would make for a great, like I said, when these three are out, I'm going to enjoy watching them in one night.
Right. Yeah. And I also like it. It's a little bit of a change up. All these men are really insubordinate to the females.
Yeah.
It's a continually feminine dominant movie. Mm-hmm. Right. Pearl's running the farm, and she's and he's upset because he can't handle her anymore.
Yep.
And he can't make this movie without appeasing to the females, and everybody else is kind of a weakling. It's a completely pro-feminine movie. I love it.
Well, the thing about it is they don't think that they're out of
control. They think they're in charge.
Wayne is the producer of this film, and he's supplying everything. He's like, I'm going to make this movie, and I'm going to make us all rich because I don't want to
follow my fire. Yeah.
Yeah, but the moment anyone gives him crap, then too, he's also like. He's also a big complain dog too. When he's asked to go and investigate, Kid Cudi's disappearance when Jackson goes away. He's like, I'm done with this childhood bull crap, and he goes out like that. But then he also goes out and he's stretching himself, making himself look really buff.
He's so delusional, I'm the man. I'm in charge. Right?
Yeah, I love that. I think it's that tidy whitey shot of him in the doorway.
I
think it's so great. And then you have the completely nude shot of Jackson, and you can see all the shadow play in there. Yeah. And it's like the differentiation between how they operate as these two male characters. They're both
Brittany
confronting.
tears him down.
Yeah,
it was acting, baby. Come on, you're not that great.
Yeah. Just out there, just kissing his guns over there, checking it out.
So, have you seen X? My God, you should.
Yeah, check it out. I do you think it was better that you saw Pearl first?
For me, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's interesting because the both films are so tied together, but they're not really reliant on knowledge of each other. You kind of know going to X exactly the same stuff you would have known if you hadn't seen.
You
Pearl,
don't have to.
But I think both films are fun either direction.
Right. Either direction is there's no wrong answer.
Yeah. So see them both in whatever order you can. I'm pretty sure you'll figure out the chronology. And then let us know your thoughts on X down below. Do you prefer Pearl or X? Or are you really excited more for Maxine? Maybe neither film worked for you, but you want to check out the third one. Let us know down in the comment section. We'd love to hear about it. I know, I'm so excited for that movie. I've never been more excited for a random movie appearing in a post-credit scene. While you're down there, please like and subscribe. And make sure you check out that Patreon link down below in the description. We'd love to have you part of the team. Thank you guys for joining us. You can find all my film reviews, including 31 Days of Horror Part 9 Resurrection, over on goatfilmreviews.com.
And you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts. So
we've got the X Factor, but do you?
Oh my gosh.